We just thought this is a really tricky session for elementary teachers because we collect data at Institute in very different ways for reading, math, and writing. And so we wanted to give you at least a second to think about it and take a look at what it looks like in OSAT and know what the other person who's doing math right now is doing, so that when you take over, you will be well prepared. And if that transition is hard for you guys because you're both busy, somebody will tell you what's going on. So that's what we're going for here. So actually, if you have your computer and you want to log into your OSAT, that would be the best. Unfortunately, I can't. My account is messed up for some reason, so I can't log in to show you on the screen. But you're going to get a screen that looks sort of like this. And I'm just going to talk you through a few pieces about entering math data and how you might want to use it and stuff like that. So similar to the DRA tracker, you've got the objectives there across the top, and then it's going to, once you fill in your data, it's going to populate with red or green, and I think, is there a yellow? Perhaps a yellow too. To give you an overall sense of how students are doing in that area. The nice thing about math is sometimes it seems like it's a little bit more cut and dried with like, do they know this or do they not? I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the assessment that your collaborative members gave this year, but as we've switched over to the Common Core standards, a big part of the assessment is students explaining their answer. So the big trend that we were seeing in with the last group is sometimes students were able to get the answer right, but usually the explanation was not present. It was like the rare student that was really explaining their answer. So the score that your collab mates are entering for the diagnostic is a combination of, is the answer right, and did they explain their answer? So based on that, you guys are going to be selecting which objectives you're going to teach for the rest of the summer. So that's something that we get to do for math that we don't get to do for reading and writing, because we have way more math objectives than we could possibly teach over the course of the summer. So they are kind of taking the lead on that. But the thing for you to know is that that's happening, right? And because you guys are going to be teaching those last 9 or 10 objectives, you may want to get together with them sometime between now and tomorrow night to take a look at the data, talk about which objectives you're going to teach, and if you want to weigh in on that at all, that's your chance to do it. Because once that gets selected, then it's done. So once it's selected in here tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, you've chosen the 5 they already taught plus the next 13. Then that's it. You kind of can't go back and change it. So
they're choosing it? Is that what you said?
They're taking the lead on choosing it, but I did say you might want to talk to the other person who's teaching math later, and you guys might want to reach out to them just so you can help them decide if you're interested in doing that. If not, just let them decide and then be happy with their decision. So a couple things to know about entering data. Data is in the math OSAT is entered as a score out of 100. So even though the assessment is graded on a 4-point scale, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're entering the data as a score out of 100 because that's how the growth goal is calculated. So the reason that you need to know that is that when you start teaching your daily math lessons, you're going to want to be using the rubric that's at the bottom of the math ISAT to score your assessments, because you want it to give you a good sense of, are kids on track to mastering this objective on the way that it shows up on the math assessment. And so that's just for you to know that on your math ISAT at the bottom is a rubric. You can use it, but you're going to always enter the score out of 100. And I think that, I don't know, is that the same as
you mean on every daily formative assessment, it should be out of 100?
Out of 100.
So you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, but you just enter those 25, 50, 75.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have 2 problems, they get a 3 on one and a 2 on the other. That's 5 out of 8. Pop out the calculator. What percentage is that? That's what you're going to enter in there. Yeah. And the thing I really want to emphasize, I don't know if Melissa said this about the reading, but also about the math, is that this data, the daily data, is really for you to see our students on track to meeting that growth goal, right? So we're not going to be super persnickety about, like, are you scoring everything on that 4-point scale, and is it like 35% or 36%? Like, it's for you to have a good sense of how kids are doing, right? So that's the key piece there. The thing that I want to spend most of our time talking about today, though, is what kind of information can we get from actually looking at student work in math because this piece of the explanation is going to be so crucial, and that's where we can really see like where student understanding is breaking down. So the handouts for this session, I'm going to say the path because I don't have it on the slide, but if you go to your week 2 handout pack, and then analyzing and responding to data, there's a document that's just floating out there that says analyzing and responding to data handouts, and if you pull that up, I'm going to pull it up on mine as well. So the top of that document looks like this. We're not going to look at all that sample data because you're going to have real data in a minute that your collab people are going to fill in.
Is it handouts?
Yeah. But if you scroll down here, you'll see a handout 6. That's a sample exit ticket data. And then you'll see a second page of that handout which is a little bit hard to read, but you can see a student explanation of their thinking. So what we're going to take a few minutes to do right now in a partnership is take a look at, on that first page, take a look at this exit ticket and think about where do you see, where does student understanding seem to be breaking down on that exit ticket. Take yourself a few notes, we're going to share about it in a minute. And then on the second page, take a look specifically at number 9, which is this one right here that my pointer is pointing to. And again, think about what can we see from that student's written work that's telling us where their understanding is breaking down. So the first handout is sort of a whole class situation, what's breaking down for the whole class. And then the second page, we're thinking about where is understanding breaking down for this individual student. Okay? So go ahead and take a few minutes to do that with someone who's sitting next to you, and then we're going to talk about it.